As a boy or a man, women play a big part in our lives, and from an early age, we begin to shape our identity around how we are perceived by them. Approval becomes a silent currency. Attention feels like validation. Rejection, on the other hand, feels like a verdict on our worth. But what if everything you've been taught about attraction is backwards? What if the behaviors you believe make you desirable are actually the same ones pushing women away? Let's be brutally honest. If your goal was to get rejected by women consistently, there is a very predictable blueprint you could follow. And ironically, most men are already following it without realizing it. First, make her your center of gravity immediately. The moment you meet a woman, place her on a pedestal so high she can barely see you anymore. Agree with everything she says. Laugh too hard at jokes that aren't even funny. Change your opinions to match hers. Become flexible to the point where you have no shape, no backbone, no presence. When a man abandons himself to gain approval, he becomes invisible. There is nothing attractive about someone who has no clear identity. Next, seek validation constantly. Every interaction becomes a subtle plea for reassurance. You text her, then check your phone every 2 minutes. You analyze her replies like they hold the secrets of the universe. If she takes too long to respond, your mood drops. If she replies with one word, your confidence crumbles. This energy is loud, even when unspoken. It communicates one thing clearly: I need you to feel okay about myself. And nothing repels faster than neediness disguised as interest. Then over-invest before earning anything. You give too much too soon. Long paragraphs, endless compliments, immediate emotional availability. You act as if she has already proven herself worthy of your time, attention, and energy, when in reality she's still a stranger. This imbalance creates pressure. It removes the natural tension that attraction feeds on. You're handing over value without any reason for her to appreciate it. Another powerful way to guarantee rejection is to be afraid of risk. You never express real desire. You hide your intentions behind being nice. You become her emotional support, her therapist, her safe option, but never the man she feels drawn to. You avoid flirting. You avoid tension. You avoid anything that could potentially lead to rejection, not realizing that this avoidance is the rejection. Attraction requires polarity, boldness, and the willingness to step into the unknown. Also, neglect your own life. Make her your only source of excitement. Cancel your plans to be available. Stop pursuing your goals. Let your world shrink until she becomes the only thing that matters. When a man has no mission, no direction, no ambition, he unconsciously communicates that he has nothing better to offer. A man without purpose is not intriguing, he's predictable. And here's the most overlooked one: take everything personally. If she's distant, assume it's because you're not enough. If she's not interested, assume it's a reflection of your value. This mindset makes you fragile. It makes every interaction heavy. Women can feel when a man is carrying the weight of his self-worth into every conversation. Rejection, in many cases, is not random. It's a response, a reaction to patterns, behaviors, and energy that signal a lack of self-respect. And the truth is, most men are not rejected because they are unattractive. They are rejected because they abandon themselves in the presence of someone they want. This is where everything begins to shift. When you stop chasing approval and start building internal validation, your entire presence changes. But before getting there, you need to clearly see the habits that are working against you. Because once you understand how to get rejected, you're one step closer to understanding how to stop. Now let's go deeper, because the surface level mistakes are only symptoms. The real reason men get rejected by women lies in something far less visible: their internal state. If you truly want to be rejected consistently, build your entire identity around outcome. Make everything about whether she likes you or not. When you walk into a conversation, don't focus on connection, curiosity, or presence. Focus only on one question: is this working? This immediately puts you in a reactive frame. Instead of leading the interaction, you start chasing signals. You begin adjusting in real time. If she seems slightly less engaged, you talk more. If she laughs, you try to be funnier. If she pulls back, you lean in harder. You become emotionally dependent on her reactions, which means you've already given away your power. Attraction cannot grow in a dynamic where one person is constantly seeking and the other is evaluating. Another guaranteed path to rejection is to suppress your authenticity. Say what you think she wants to hear instead of what you actually believe. Hide your opinions to avoid conflict. Filter your personality so heavily that nothing real comes through. You become safe, but also forgettable. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Being liked by everyone often means you're not deeply felt by anyone. When a man is authentic, he risks disagreement. He risks not being liked, but he also creates polarity. And polarity is what creates attraction. Without it, interactions stay flat, predictable, and emotionally empty. Now, let's talk about emotional control or the lack of it. If you want to push women away, become reactive. Let small things affect you. If she cancels a plan, show frustration. If she doesn't reply quickly, send multiple follow ups. If she seems distant, confront her immediately. This signals instability. It shows that your emotional state is easily shaken. Emotional steadiness is rare, and because it's rare, it's attractive. When a man is grounded, he doesn't get pulled into every small fluctuation. He observes, he adapts, but he doesn't lose himself. On the other hand, when you react impulsively, you communicate insecurity without saying a word. Another powerful rejection strategy is to ignore boundaries, both hers and your own. Overstep subtly, push conversations too far, too fast, make things uncomfortable by not reading the room, or even worse, tolerate behavior that doesn't align with your standards just to keep her around. When you don't respect your own boundaries, you teach others not to respect them either. Respect is not something you demand, it's something you demonstrate. Now let's shift to something even more subtle: energy. People often underestimate how much communication happens beyond words. Your posture, your tone, your pace, your eye contact, all of it sends signals. If you walk into an interaction already feeling like you're not enough, that energy leaks out in ways you can't control. You hesitate, you over explain, you apologize unnecessarily, you shrink yourself without realizing it. Confidence is not about being loud or dominant, it's about being comfortable with who you are, regardless of the outcome. When that's missing, no technique can save you. Here's another mistake that guarantees rejection: placing women on a different level than yourself. You treat them as if they are the prize and you are the applicant. You try to impress instead of connect. You perform instead of express. This creates an imbalance from the very beginning. Attraction thrives in equality, not hierarchy. The moment you see someone as above you, you subconsciously place yourself below. And everything you do starts coming from that position. Finally, one of the most destructive patterns: fearing rejection so much that you never give yourself a real chance. You don't approach, you don't express interest clearly. You stay in the gray area hoping something will happen without you having to risk anything. But in doing so, you reject yourself before anyone else gets the chance. Avoiding rejection feels safe, but it guarantees stagnation. The irony is this: rejection is not the enemy, it's feedback, it's direction. It's part of the process of becoming a man who doesn't need to chase validation because he already has it within himself. And once that shift begins, everything changes. Not because women suddenly become different, but because you do. At this point, you can probably see the pattern clearly. Getting rejected by women is not some mysterious, unpredictable outcome. It's a byproduct of how you show up, your mindset, your behavior, your standards, and most importantly, your relationship with yourself. So now the real question is, what happens when you stop following that blueprint? Everything begins to shift the moment you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing. This is where most men get it wrong. They walk into every interaction hoping to be liked, hoping to be accepted, hoping to be validated, but attraction doesn't grow from hoping, it grows from presence, direction, and self respect. Instead of asking yourself, does she like me? You start asking a different question: do I like her? That small shift changes everything. It pulls you out of a passive mindset and puts you back in control. You're no longer trying to win approval, you're evaluating compatibility. And when you operate from that place, your behavior naturally changes. You stop over explaining, you stop trying to impress, you stop forcing conversations. There's a calmness in how you speak, how you move, how you respond. You're not rushing to fill silence because you're not afraid of it anymore. Silence no longer feels like a threat, it becomes space. Another key shift is detachment from outcome. This doesn't mean you don't care, it means your sense of self is not tied to the result of a single interaction. If she's interested, great. If she's not, that's fine too. This level of emotional independence is powerful because it removes pressure. It allows interactions to unfold naturally instead of being forced into a specific direction. And ironically, when there's no pressure, attraction has room to grow. You also begin to express yourself more honestly. You say what you actually think. You flirt without overthinking every word. You allow your personality to come through without filtering it to death. Not everyone will respond positively to that, and that's the point. You're no longer trying to appeal to everyone. You're allowing the right people to connect with the real version of you. Rejection doesn't disappear in this process, it becomes irrelevant. Because now, rejection is not a reflection of your worth, it's simply a mismatch. And once you internalize that, something powerful happens. You stop taking things personally. You understand that attraction is subjective, that timing matters, that people have their own preferences, experiences, and emotional states that have nothing to do with you. This realization removes a massive weight off your shoulders. Now, let's talk about standards. When you respect yourself, you naturally raise your standards. You don't tolerate disrespect. You don't chase inconsistency. You don't invest in someone who isn't investing in you. This doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from clarity. You know what you bring to the table, and you're not willing to settle for less than what aligns with that. And here's the interesting part: the moment you stop chasing, you become more attractive. Not because you're playing games, but because your behavior reflects self sufficiency. You have a life outside of dating. You have goals, priorities, and direction. You're not waiting around for someone to give you meaning. You already have it. Women are naturally drawn to men who are grounded in their own world. Not because it's a strategy, but because it signals stability, confidence, and independence. At the end of the day, this isn't really about women. It's about you. It's about whether you respect yourself enough to stay true to who you are, even when there's a risk of rejection. It's about whether you can walk into any interaction without needing a specific outcome to feel okay. Because the man who doesn't need validation becomes the man who attracts it naturally. So if you ever find yourself getting rejected again, don't see it as failure, see it as information. Ask yourself, am I showing up as someone who is trying to be chosen, or someone who is already complete? Because that difference changes everything.